Blimey, the Second Doctor has had a busy year this year. He's had some infrequent appearances with his Season 6B debut in Beyond War Games in 2022. Then he also had the James Robert McCrimmon box set from last year, which was very, very good. But now we continue the adventure with the third installment in the Season 6B series, the Second Doctor Adventures Conspiracy of Raven. So for those of you who don't know, Season 6B is the fan theory that after the events of the War Games, the Doctor took part in several missions for the Time Lords under duress, along with Jamie McCrimmon, played by Fraser Hines. This is how we get the Second Doctor and Jamie in The Two Doctors for the 1980s TV story. So, Big Finish decided to, in their own way, canonise the Season 6B theory, where the Doctor is taken away from his regeneration at the end of the War Games by Raven, played by Emma Noakes. She's a Time Lord who works for the Celestial Intervention Agency, and is working behind the scenes to ensure that the Doctor is doing some nefarious things, some nefarious missions that he's been instructed to go on, away from Time Lord eyes, Time Lord prying eyes, for the Celestial Intervention Agency for reasons we don't quite know yet. So in the last box set, the Time Lords and Raven realised that the Doctor worked better with a companion, so they got Jamie back. Currently, 70 or 80-year-old Jamie in the Highlands is now the Second Doctor's companion. And now, in The Conspiracy of Raven, we also bring back Zoe, who also had her memories erased at the end of the War Games, but is returning here, played by Wendy Padbury, for a trilogy of stories. Kippers by Nicholas Briggs, Catastrophe Theory by Mark Wright, and The Vanishing Point by Mark Wright and Nicholas Briggs. These are 3 two-part stories. They're essentially hour-long stories. And like I mentioned, particularly in the James Robert McCrimmon box set, that really does help for the pacing. Even if you could sort of close your eyes and imagine that these are being made in Lime Grove Studios in the late 1960s on a BBC budget in black and white, the pacing itself feels very modern, feels very energetic and fast, and there's an awful lot happening. But it seems that for this box set, though, Conspiracy of Raven, the pacing has taken a bit of a downturn. It feels like these are a lot more slower, a lot more methodical stories, because it seems that the end game for this Season 6B saga is in sight, or at least the end of this particular narrative thread, with the Second Doctor being sent on missions for goodness knows who by Raven, as well as part of the Celestial Intervention Agency. So in Kippers, it takes place after the events of The Shroud, which was the final story in the James Robert McCrimmon box set. The Doctor and Jamie have been separated, and the Doctor finds himself on an abandoned Time Lord ship with Raven, and also a character who we met in the Shroud story as well, who should not be there, but is somehow along for the ride. These 3 are making their way across this derelict spaceship, and it seems that everyone's gone missing, there's no Time Lords in sight, something has beaten them to this ship, has gotten rid of the crew for whatever reason. They have no idea what's going on, and even Raven does not have a clue who is engineering this scheme. Let's play a clip from Kippers.
There was a noise, and...
Noise? What noise?
Haven't you heard it?
Depends what noise you mean. I've heard Jamie calling to me.
So McCrimmon's nearby?
No. In fact, he sounded a very long way away indeed. And what's more, he's stopped calling now.
So your TARDIS went out of control? Is that what you're saying?
The moment I attempted to set the coordinates for myself, it went into some sort of time spiral. I lost consciousness, and when I came to, Jamie had disappeared. I assumed you or your Time Lord masters had taken him. Yes. And you'd love it if that were true, wouldn't you, eh? But you're as much in the dark as we are, aren't you? Aren't you, Raven?
I admit that things are not quite clear at the moment.
Not quite clear? That's a bit of an understatement, isn't it?
So you've no idea where all your precious Time Lords have got to, have you?
Perhaps this section of the space station is closed for maintenance, or... Oh
dear, not very convincing.
And that noise we keep hearing is...
What noise?
You really haven't heard it?
I want to make sure we're hearing the same noise before I answer that question. Now, describe it for me, please.
Well... Well, it's sort of a strange, well...
It's a sort of a buzzing and fluttering.
Oh,
Same noise?
yes, the same noise.
So Kippers is an effective, intimate horror drama, and I think it's only kind of interesting if you already have all of this context and prerequisite from the previous Second Doctor adventures. This story, Conspiracy of Raven, is not a box set that I think you can just dive into. Obviously this is box set number 3 in the Second Doctor adventures, but this one is especially the end of the second act, where a lot of the pieces are already in place, we're learning more about the characters, and we're also subverting the characters. In Kippers by Nicholas Briggs, a lot of this subversion is done with Raven, who really has no idea what's going on, and she does not like being in control of the situation. It's a look that Raven does not wear very well. She's not very good at hiding that poker face, and she goes through the gamut of emotions over the course of this box set, where she's frequently trying to regain control of the situation and learn exactly who her puppet masters are over the course of these 3 stories. As Curiosity Rocks in the chat asks, is Raven inspired by Face the Raven in the Street that me had? No, this is an entirely separate creation, an entirely separate concoction. Raven, played by Emma Noakes, is this Time Lord agent from the Celestial Intervention Agency who is essentially puppet mastering the Doctor and all of these encounters that he's been having. And yes, as Punda Hands in the chat says, this is Michael Troughton playing the Second Doctor and doing so brilliantly. You can really hear the incredible impression and just the great performance over the course of these box sets as well. He's really getting better and better the more he does it. And Conspiracy of Raven, he's terrific here as well. But Kippers, it's a decent opener. I don't think it needed to be 2 parts though. A lot of it is just mood building. A lot of it is just sort of character subversions, which is fun, but I don't really think it sustains for the 55 to 60 minutes that it actually takes place in. A lot of it is establishing the titular Kippers, who are this strange... I sort of imagined them as weird ethereal jellyfish type creatures floating through the air that devour and disintegrate anything that comes into contact with them. For what reason, why they're doing that, and who sent them here, we don't quite know yet. But yeah, I thought there was an effective threat. It was something that there's a really great scene when Raven tries to fight a bunch of them off, and it was really fun to hear Emma Noakes, who's just brilliant over these box sets, how amazing she was at just doing the whole action hero sound effects and noises and the Foley and stuff. That was really good. Emma Noakes is so good in these stories. But yeah, Kippers was slow, but it was effective horror, some interesting character subversions, but I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. However, Catastrophe Theory is when the Doctor finds himself reunited with Zoe, played by Wendy Padbury. And Zoe is someone who has been quite high up in the ranks of Earth. She's got some ceremonial robes on, and all of a sudden she just finds herself in the TARDIS with the Second Doctor, and for some reason she has her memories of the Second Doctor adventures on TV, has those memories restored. Now in the last box set they went through a whole rigmarole as to why Jamie was able to keep his memories. Essentially, TLDR, the Time Lords botched his memory wipe. But for Wendy Padbury's Zoe, there's not as much explanation here, and I think that's part of the overarching mystery here. But before I go a bit further, let's play a quick clip from Catastrophe Theory.
Doctor? Is it really you? Doctor?
More to the point, is it really you?
Oh, well, I know I'm quite a bit older, but surely you can still recognize me?
Oh yes, I recognize you all right. But just how did you get here, Well, answer me.
Well, I don't know. One minute I was in the Senate chamber, and the next I was here.
I see.
You sound like you don't believe me.
Why should I? This doesn't fit the pattern at all.
Pattern? What pattern?
And they wanted me to travel with Jamie again.
Jamie? Again?
They seem to find him. Raven seemed to be behind it all.
What? Raven? Oh, Doctor, I don't know what you're talking about.
But Raven isn't even in charge of it all now. She's stuck in a space station on her own, except for a bunch of Kippers.
Kippers? Oh, Doctor, are you sure you're quite all right?
Frankly, I'm not sure of anything, except that I've hopefully set the TARDIS to find Jamie.
You know, I'm beginning to think you're not the Doctor at all. Oh, you look like him, all right. But you're not behaving anything like him.
Of course I'm the Doctor.
Oh, this is getting us nowhere. For all I know, this could just be the land of fiction.
Oh. You know about the land of fiction, do you?
Well, of course I do. I was there with you and Jamie.
But the Time Lords erased your memory of all but your first encounter with me. So exactly how do you remember? Answer me that!
Catastrophe Theory has got some interesting set pieces into it. Jamie finds himself on a leisure cruiser, a space leisure cruiser, where he essentially is trying to help this crew of small alien bird creatures try and stop the ship from crash landing and destroying everybody on the planet. You also have these set pieces with these big dogs in the second half of the story, these like security guards who also have a pack mentality. So basically, if you're able to get one of them to chase after you, they'll all chase after you because they believe in like pack mentality. Some really cool, interesting set pieces, but as a whole, I don't know if it really comes together, because what's kind of difficult to recommend about Conspiracy of Raven is that, you know, the character work is pretty strong for the most part. There's some great performances and some cool moments and set pieces, but as a whole, it does kind of feel like these 6 episodes over these 3 stories penned by Nicholas Briggs and Mark Wright are kind of buying time for the cliffhanger ending to The Vanishing Point, where they know where they want the story to go, and it's kind of like, okay, how can we spread this across 6 episodes and also introduce Zoe and reintroduce her to the Second Doctor and Jamie. I kind of feel like this one is more like, I don't want to say it's filling time, but it is very consciously moving all of the pieces in place to brace us for the finale, or perhaps a brand new chapter or a brand new act in these Second Doctor adventures with Michael Troughton, Emma Noakes, Fraser Hines, and now Wendy Padbury. On a character front, Wendy Padbury does not get that much to do. In the James Robert McCrimmon box set from last year, yes, it was basically rehashing a lot of like Second Doctor and Jamie nostalgia, but there was a lot of like fun in the dynamic. There was a lot of like, okay, you know, Jamie is older but wiser. You know, he is not the same Jamie who we knew when he was much younger traveling with the Second Doctor. He's got a lot more like life experience and more knowledge behind him, which makes for a slightly different dynamic. Very similar to the Third Doctor and Jo Jones adventures with Tim Treloar and Katie Manning from last year as well. I didn't really, you know, rate the stories so much from that box set, but the character work was pretty spot on. But for this one though, with Zoe, she doesn't have a lot to chew on with the material. Wendy Padbury does not get an awful lot to do in this box set on a character level, apart from, oh, here's a reference to the invasion. You know, can you make this computer like self-destruct itself? Are you able to solve this logic puzzle? Are you able to... There's a lot of callbacks, not a lot of character stuff. There's a really big emotional moment in The Vanishing Point, and honestly, for me, it kind of landed with a bit of a thud, which is really disappointing. It's meant to be a really big emotional moment, but I don't really think that it had built up to that because it's so focused on the plot. The box set is so focused on moving all of these pieces together for what's a pretty predictable cliffhanger, but still a really effective cliffhanger all the same, if that makes sense. Like, I could see it coming from a mile away. However, when it happened, it was like, okay, bring on the next box set, which comes out next July. Blimey, they need to do 2 of these a year. The wait for these is too long. But yeah, I'm kind of waiting for that 4th box set now to see if there is like more character work to be mined with the Second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, because, you know, there's of course the nostalgia and the appeal of bringing back Fraser Hines and Wendy Padbury to do more Second Doctor adventures, but, you know, I'm kind of waiting for them to do more interesting character stuff with the trio. And because there's so much emphasis on plot, so much like movement behind the scenes to get us to that cliffhanger ending for The Vanishing Point, which I'm not going to play a clip of because there really isn't a spoiler-free clip from The Vanishing Point, unfortunately. There's some really cool ideas in The Vanishing Point, like this, these sort of like Watchers of the Universe who live in The Vanishing Point. One of them played by Jacqueline King, who you may know as Donna Noble's mother from the TV series, Sylvia. She's really good in this as well. But, you know, a lot of it does kind of feel like busy work. A lot of it does feel like, okay, well, here's where the characters need to be by the end of the story. Here's maybe 1 or 2 of the beats that you need to hit. And when I was listening to the behind the scenes for The Vanishing Point, Nicholas Briggs even said, okay, here's 1 or 2 emotional moments that I want in The Vanishing Point, and here's our end point. And I was like, yeah, you didn't need to tell me that, Nick. I kind of felt like it felt like that structure was the most prominent in this box set. I wish there was more fun character stuff with this dynamic. I wish the emotional moments that this was clearly aiming for maybe hit a bit harder. I don't know. It just didn't really land for me, unfortunately, in The Vanishing Point. I love the Second Doctor and Raven stuff, and the conspiracy of Raven, the titular conspiracy, which, fun fact, a conspiracy of ravens, conspiracy is the collective noun for ravens, kind of like how the collective noun for ladybirds is a loveliness of ladybirds. Anyway, that's my tangent. Conspiracy of Raven, the actual titular conspiracy, what's happening with Raven behind the scenes, how she's trying to puppeteer the Second Doctor for the CIA while she's also being puppeteered herself and she doesn't know it. Those revelations are really interesting. Part of me wishes that they'd stuck with the idea of Raven just being an irredeemably evil Time Lord. They try to give her some nicer qualities. They try to, oh, I was just following orders, or I didn't know what was happening. That's valid. I just wish that we had an irredeemably evil Time Lord villain with Raven. There's still time for that direction to happen. There's still time for that to take place in the next box set, but I don't know. I kind of think that I think Emma Noakes revels in that material significantly better than the I was just following orders Raven that we get in some scenes in this box set. I don't want to talk down Conspiracy of Raven too much, but I need to emphasize this is the end of Act 2 for the Second Doctor adventures in this Beyond War game set. We had essentially a prologue and beginning of Act 1 with Beyond War Games. Then we got Act 1 and beginning of Act 2 for James Robert McCrimmon. And now this is end of Act 2 for the cliffhanger ending for the final act, or at least the start of a new set of antagonists, or a new phase for the Second Doctor adventures. It's fine, but the stories themselves kind of suffer with being the middle chapter, and a lot of pieces are just being arranged to get to the end of that chapter. I think this could have been stronger on a character level. I think that there's some interesting and fun novel set pieces, but it gets lost in the shuffle. It kind of feels like, okay, we have to get to this place, and now we're there because the plot needs us to be here for this to happen. It felt a little haphazard with its structure, and as a result, I think it made for stories that might be important later on in the long run, but for immediate listening in the moment, it felt a little lackluster, which is a shame. But I still enjoyed it for the most part. I still think that Troughton, Hines, and Padbury have great chemistry with each other. I just wish there was more character work here to justify bringing these characters back.